question about using units is put those units into an expression. So if I can't do this objective, I can't move forward in that problem. Does that make sense? So they're all going to connect together, and which makes sense with some of these. Like, I think the geometry vocabulary makes perfect sense, right? If I don't know the vocabulary of geometry, how can I even start to do a parallel? If I'm like, what point on these two parallel lines is whatever, and I don't know what parallel lines are, I can't even access the question, right? But I don't think they're ever going to come out and go, the definition of parallel lines is a, Okay. So that is what we know about the PARCC assessment right now, currently. Are there any other questions I can help that I might know or might not know about the PARCC assessment?
This particular model content framework, is that out for people to review? I mean, even this is not set in stone yet, am I right?
Everything's changing.
Yeah, okay.
I think the safe assumption is nothing is said. Excuse me.
But this is where we are right now, at this point.
This is where we are. This is what we know right now, this moment in time. This is what we can start using to plan. This is what we can.
It's all we have to use in terms of making some decisions.
Right, and the difficult thing is, as I work with teachers, is everyone's, I don't want it to change. I don't want to put this work in and change. But the test is starting in the 2014-15 school year, so how can we not start working towards it? And it really is. And then you get, like for example, we did our leveling work, and then the performance descriptors came out, and we're like, well, this would have been nice to have.
Yes.
Yes. Because this would have really helped us and guided us our work. But, so it's just life. Okay, so that's currently what we know about Common Core and the assessments and what the assessments will look like coming from PARCC starting the 2014-15 school year. I would definitely highly recommend going to Smarter Balance and taking the pilot test. I think it was eye-opening for me. It was useful to know, get a sense of the rigor level of it. What is it really going to look like, rather than this sort of supposed. I was not as scared as I thought I was going to be by the rigor level of it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, because I think some of this is scary in terms of the rigor level, but the assessment kind of calmed me down a little bit.
It's also scary because a lot of it's unknown. It's the unknown that makes us
correct. Yes.
upset.
Yes. Yeah. So what I want to do for now, about half an hour, is just take you through the process we've gone through at West Chicago. It's it's not my process. It's something I stole from people cleverer than I am. But at least it's a way of starting to move toward assessments aligned to Common Core and Common Core standards. So really, as you think about one of the major shifts from, and I will just paint a very traditional skill-based math classroom, to Common Core, is now this emphasis on reasoning. It's not so much how much math do I know, it's what can I do with the math I know? How can I reason and use it? Really, if you think about a traditional point-based system, works very well with the know these amount of skills. It doesn't necessarily work so well with to what depth do you know these skills. Does that make sense? My analogy is always, an older system is throw 100 pieces of spaghetti at the wall. If 90 stick, you get an A. 80 stick, you get a B. Now it's much more about, here's a skill, now can you use it to solve problems and do all of those things. Assessments need to diagnose the learning of the students and should drive instructional practice, including differentiated instruction. Really, this is going back to, everybody's heard about formative assessment, those formative assessment pieces. But throughout the year, those instructional practices driving what you're doing, the UBD model. I know where I'm going, I know what I want to do, I know where I want to get students to, I can assess them along the way, I can spiral my assessments if I need to and see where they are. And then really what we're doing is looking at moving towards a standards-based classroom. Okay, so let's talk about a standards-based classroom for a minute. So the purpose of a standard-based classroom is to compare students to the standard. How are you doing compared to this Common Core standard and where you should be? And then clearly outline the learning progression for that student. This is what you need to learn in order to get to that point. So I know yesterday you talked about flipped classroom and problem-based learning, correct? So really it's, if I'm going to do problem-based learning, you need to know the skill before you can do the problem-based learning. Can I assess that you know the skill? Or where are you struggling? Are you struggling that you don't know the skill? Or are you struggling with the application piece of that skill? Or how to use that skill, or how to reason it? It emphasizes the need for a tight link between curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Right? We've known this for years. I want to go in, I want to teach what I say I teach, right? And then I want to assess what I said I would assess, right? And then students are going to buy into that. Students are going to buy into, if I put the effort in, there's no secret question. It gives students constant formative and feedback on their learning progression. So how do we start doing that within this standard-based piece? It starts with unpacking a standard. And maybe these are familiar ideas and familiar terms. Really, the key with unpacking this is finding out what is the mathematical skill, and then what do they want the student to be able to do with it. I've worked with teachers who they just see the mathematical skill still there. They don't look for what does the student need to do with it, and that's what's changing. The mathematical skills are still the mathematical skills, right? They're not, that piece is not changing. So let's have a go. I have a high school one and a middle school. See if you can pick out the skill, right? And then what are they asking students to do with those skills?